with a lot of experts. But I believe because she's aware of the international arena, she's aware of the international arena in terms of legal as well. Maybe right here you can ask her about, some of the several laws of other countries as well. As we go regional, what should we look at when we're going to this so-and-so country or a country of this magnitude? Can we have another round of applause there, please? All right, and now I am going to invite our next speaker. So we'll have all the presentations for 10 minutes each, and then after that, we can have the general discussion, because I believe most of the presenters will still be here, and if they have another input, they can add as well. So if you have questions, please just note them down, and then you can just ask them when we have the general discussion. For now, I'd like to invite to the stage the CEO of Reliance Insurance, Mr. Ravi Shankar, to speak about managing regional business risks through insurance solutions. Can we have a round of applause to Mr. Ravi, please? Welcome, sir.
Yeah, very good morning.
Good morning.
Before I start, I have just one question, because this is going to impact the entire topic of the day. What is, in your view, the one reason, and just give me one reason for the underdevelopment of Africa as a continent? You can say illiteracy, you can say corruption. Can you give me one reason?
Leadership?
Leadership. Actually, and you will be surprised, when the foreigners used to come, it is not colonialism, because they were so scared of malaria. There used to be 75%, more than 75% mortality rate because of malaria. They used to stay inside the ship only. One of the reasons for Africa's underdevelopment is geography. And the reason is, Africa is the second largest continent in the world, but its shoreline is the shortest. It has very, very few natural harbors. And the riverways are very few. Only one that can strike you is River Nile, where you have Cairo and Alexandria. You have Zaire, you have Niger, but they are only water-fed. And they have a lot of rapids, etc. So they cannot be navigated, right? And the reason is, and most of them depend upon rainfall, because unlike Europe, unlike India, many of the rivers are slow-fed. So they are perennial. Here they are not. So then what happened because of the geography? So now, when the grain used to be transported to Africa, almost the major part of cost was the transportation cost. And gentlemen, when you hear about what could be exported, the thing was, what was Gold Coast? Now things which can be sold at a high value will still have a market, like gold. Now Ghana, Gold Coast, Ivory Coast, right? And Nigeria became a shipping point for the slaves. But the whole idea was the geography. Now, geography for Africa had another problem. It isolated regions. It didn't bring distant communication. And then there was another problem. Transportation. You talk about animal. So the animal would be affected by tsetse fly. And then you would see people carrying goods on their shoulders. That was another difficulty. Therefore, with this mindset, now in this area of today, now imagine a scenario where you have a good road network, rail network, aviation, you have a digital thing. When you bring Africa together, this century will be Africa's century. So what we are talking about is, and then the gentleman, the keynote address before that, they were talking about Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has been brought into effect from 2021, or almost more than 21 countries have signed signed on it. So what the thing is, the handicap that Africa suffered need to be brought only because the only way to come down is with this bringing Africa together. And SADC, all these associations are part of this, that unless you have a bringing together of all the countries, and I think it's more than 51 countries put together. If you bring them all as one economic area, it will unleash the potential. So what would happen is that you have to bring down the tariffs. Someone was talking about custom duties, etc. So those are tariff barriers. You're talking about non-tariff barriers, where you will say, my own people, you know, one of the very important thing for you is the supply of your skilled labor. In World Trade Organization, one of the biggest thing where countries like Africa and Asia lost, because the manufacturing countries got, because they said, okay, our goods will be coming at a lower cost. But what does our countries have? We have a lot of skill. And would you believe, per hour working in Africa, generally if you compare it with America, it's hardly 2% compared to, let's say, one is getting $100, here one is getting $2. That's the big difference. So the cost of labor is here low, but also means the poverty is there. So regionalism is going to address that problem. So when you have regional grouping, what happens is, now you heard from the legal side, the law. So whenever you have a regional grouping, some sort of surrender of sovereignty is required. Because when you say, okay, I'll pass my own laws. EU has been one example where countries had to surrender that, because you cannot have a regional grouping without a common regional laws. If there is going to be one, let's say, custom tariff all across, if there is going to be only Africans who would be allowed to move, ladies and gentlemen, what are the great areas? Travel, tourism, logistics, roads, manufacturing facility, everywhere. What would you require? You would require one rule framework. You have heard in GCC countries now, they're talking about one common visa. What did you talk about Shenzhen? What was Shenzhen? You have Shenzhen visa, and all those countries, you can simply move. You don't have to have separate visas for separate country. That's mobility. So now, that is the way, because what happened was, because of the geography, and then you had a lot of isolation. In Europe or in West, there were very few areas of isolation, like mountains, etc. But in Africa, because of the lack of the roads, accessibility, etc., that was the problem. But now, internet has come in a very big way. So now, let's go on to the scenario, and that's where we have to prepare.